Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this, the inaugural episode of Nintendo Everything Refresh. This is a brand new show that we are putting together to keep you in the loop and refresh your memory over the latest Nintendo news and just what we're interested in the world of Nintendo. Fortunately, it is not just me here to talk your ear off for 45 minutes. We've got a very talented team of global Nintendo Everything staff. Let's everyone say hi to Dennis.
Hello, hello. How is everybody?
We've got Luiz.
Hey everyone.
And we have got Nicolas.
Hello everyone.
And yes, there are two Nicks on this show, and I'm sure that is not going to get remotely confusing. I can change my name if I need to. So where is everyone from? Just for context for everyone.
So at the moment, I'm actually in Arizona, but I have spent the bulk of my life in North Carolina, and but I was born in New York and spent a couple years there. Went back pretty much every year up until maybe I want to say about 2018, usually during the summer. But yeah, no, I'm just kind of all over the place with a future in Washington State, so kind of moving around a bit. But yeah.
Okay, that is a crazy coincidence because I also live in Arizona, which is just the odds of that are crazy.
Such a small. It really is, because every time I hear like stories like this, oh, you went there, like even just talking to friends where it's like, we'd all been thinking about going to Washington for some time, and then a close friend of mine, after he got married, well, 2 years after he got married, moved to Washington State. I'm like, so now that the plan is to go there in the future. To kind of reunite with all my friends again there after North Carolina is just going to kind of be a crazy sort of thing. How we're all sort of on this sort of same wavelength that all kind of all the roads lead there. So
seriously, and Luiz, I think people are already pretty familiar with you because you do all the great work for the Nintendo Everything channel. But where are you from? What are you doing?
Oh, so yeah, I'm from Brazil, as I already said in a lot of videos. But I'm from a city called Belém do Pará. And it's a city very close to the Amazon rainforest. It's like in the heart of the Amazon rainforest. So yeah, it's a nice place.
Wow, that sounds really cool. And Nicolas, where are you from?
I'm from France, so that's part of the international, I guess. Grew up most of my life in France, spent a few years in the States. Kind of just chilling here for now.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this. This is going to be a great show. And wherever you are listening in from, thank you so much for tuning in. Let's jump right into our first big topic of the episode, which is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. This is a game that a lot of people are very excited for. It's Kirby's first full 3D adventure. Dennis, you've been playing this one for a review, haven't you?
That's right. Yep. We got it a couple days ago, and happy Kirby Day. I know it's 2 days afterwards, but still happy Kirby Day to anybody who's listening because it's a great game, and hopefully everyone's enjoying it, and everyone that has picked it up. We've been playing it for review. For Nintendo Everything, and it's been a fantastic time. It definitely strays away from the sort of traditional Kirby format. I think anyone that's played Kirby's, it really doesn't matter when you jumped in, now that I think about it, because Kirby's always been, outside of Kirby Air Ride, which, by the way, bring that back, please, has always been a traditional sort of 2D side-scrolling platformer, right? But this one takes sort of a different approach where you sort of have that, not necessarily, I don't want to say necessarily over the shoulder, but you do have that more of a 3D landscape. It's almost like Kirby's version of Super Mario 3D Land. Not so much 3D World, but 3D Land, how that was on 3DS. And it's just been such a fantastic time. I mean, the game is super colorful. It's super cute. You can't help but smile while you're playing it. Everything about that game sort of exudes this sense of calmness and refreshingness to the series. Not that Kirby ever really needed to be refreshed, because Kirby's always felt great. I mean, Kirby is such a consistently good series that never once did I feel that Kirby should sort of, stray from, how the games work on a
Sure,
foundational and a mechanical level, but this is so exciting, and I guess it's probably a good thing that they changed it when they did and under their terms, rather than people just kind of, getting sort of bored of it over time and being like, oh my god, can we please just get a new kind of Kirby, because you see that with a lot of games where like games sort of become stale over time if they're not sort of introducing or inventing, new ways to play or new ideas to play around with within, said game. So
Right. Well, and I think I'm not the most massive Kirby fan myself, but I'm kind of plugged into the discourse around it, and I remember back when Star Allies came out, that game had there were people who really liked it, but there were a lot of folks who were also like, it just feels like just another Kirby game, which may be enough for some people, but I don't know. Do you feel like this game was a good, meaningful iteration on what you've played in the past?
Absolutely. I mean, again, it's like I was saying earlier, where like, there was nothing wrong with the Kirby format before, but I'm happy that you mentioned Star Allies, because Star Allies was the first Kirby game in a long time where I was like, oh, this is... I don't want to say it wasn't good, but it definitely was not up to par to, the Kirby games that came before it. Even in recent years, I'm not talking like way back to like Superstar Saga and, things like that. I'm just talking like even more recent stuff like Planet Robobot and Triple Deluxe, which I thought were all exceptional titles, but Star Allies just did not do it for me, man. It was just one of those games where it just felt boring over time. Now the level design was still really good, and I think that's always what shines in all the Kirby games is the level design, and it's part of the excitement for me when I jump into a Kirby game is just seeing all these incredible new worlds that they've built and just the detail within them. But everything about Star Allies felt too short. It felt very bland. It felt very hollow, and I think it came out at a time where they were like, it came out not too long after the Switch initially came out. I can't remember if it came out within the same year of 2017 or if it just came out.
I believe it came out in 2018.
2018, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So only a year after the launch of the Switch, and it just was... I don't know if it felt like it was something that they had to get out to be like, all right, look, the Switch is, doing big numbers right now, even only a year after launch. We got to make sure we introduce, this huge audience of ours, that are maybe jumping into a Nintendo system for the first time, or maybe haven't gotten a Nintendo system in a long time. We really want to push out some of our biggest and brightest characters so they can, experience them, while they still have money to burn and while, we're still growing our library. Now it's like, hundreds of games are coming out on Switch seemingly every week, so it's hard to keep up with everything,
I'm honestly surprised we haven't gotten more Kirby games by this point. Like the fact that this is, this is only their second mainline release, they've got some catching up to do.
Yeah, no, they
3DS
do.
have like a dozen by now.
Yeah, no, they definitely do, and it's funny that you mentioned that because they actually have a part in the game where you kind of see all the last couple of releases that Kirby has had, and there's maybe about 8 or 9 titles, maybe even 10. I can't remember the exact number, but they have sort of like a collection of just like Kirby's past adventures, they call it, and literally like 80% of everything that's shown is all on 3DS. Like there was so much Kirby content
There was a
that
lot.
came out on 3DS.
Yeah, Luiz, Nicolas, have either of you? I mean, what's your guys' connection to Kirby? Are you guys playing this new game? Are you guys excited for it?
I'm not a big fan of Kirby. I like the games, but I don't know. It's kind of it's not a bad game, but the level design of Kirby, it's not like your usual platformer where you actually have to do platforming, because Kirby can literally fly, so it's a little hard to fall into the pits. It's more, I think Kirby has kind of a focus on combat, because you have those many abilities and all of that. So the style of gameplay that Kirby has never quite interests me. But with Kirby and the Forgotten Land, it was the first time that I was actually hyped for a Kirby game. And then...
100%.
Yeah,
Awesome.
because it feels like such an evolution from everything else. And finally seeing Kirby on a full 3D experience, it looks awesome. And I didn't get the game yet. I'm really interested in it, but I've played the demo and it felt amazing. I think the game looks really good on Switch, and I didn't have any problem with the gameplay because I think in a 3D space it feels more like a game of exploration and puzzle solving. It's a different feeling from the 2D Kirby, although the gameplay is very similar. But I think the style of the level design in a 3D space felt really different for me, and it's a game that I'm looking forward to play in the future. I'm really interested in it.
Yeah, no, everything I've seen, I mean, it's frankly, it's mind-boggling how beautiful they're able to make this game look on the Switch. It's just, every time I see more footage of it, it just blows me away. Yeah, you know, personally, I am not the biggest Kirby fan myself. I'm one of those Nintendo fans that likes to go and play the older entries in a franchise before I feel like I can really appreciate the newer ones. So I've told myself I'm not going to let myself play this new one until I go back and play Kirby's Epic Yarn at the very least.
Yeah. I mean, if you gotta play one, that's a pretty good choice.
What about you, Nicolas? How are you feeling about this new game?
So on my end, I picked up the game yesterday. I'm a pretty big Kirby fan. I've really enjoyed. I think my first game was Squeak Squad on the DS. I really enjoyed Return to Dreamland, Plant Robot, Triple Deluxe. Even Star Allies, in spite of its flaws, was still pretty fun. But everything in Forgotten Land is just mind-boggling how they've managed to achieve it. It really does feel like the next step for the franchise. Everything just works so well. They managed to adapt all the abilities to 3D incredibly well. It's very impressive. They put out an interview a few days ago that we reported on.
Oh yeah, I will talk about
regarding
that.
Regarding some of the changes they made to the game and the mechanics they've added to adjust how it would play in 3D, which really shows some of the depth and some of the thought they put into it, and there's some really interesting stuff there. Also, like Luiz mentioned, the game is just beautiful. It's honestly bizarre how pretty it is.
Yeah, like you wouldn't expect a Kirby game. I mean, like Kirby's always had like such a great aesthetic to it, but it's interesting when you see something with such a stylized approach be as beautiful as it is, because in a lot of ways, you know, you see a lot of games like these that look super unique that, you know, they're so gorgeous to the point where you almost appreciate it more than you would something more photorealistic. You know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you know, and I'm curious. I mean, I know HAL Lab makes these games still, but I feel like for something like this, just with this level of production, like, man, they have to have been getting some kind of help from the Mario team or you know, the team that made Mario Odyssey to be squeezing out those kind of visuals.
Possibly. That would be interesting to see once we reach the credits.
Yeah,
all right, Dennis,
I mean,
we expect a full report.
I'll look to Dennis for that.
You'll get a detailed breakdown once the review comes out. So.
All right. Well, and everyone, make sure you check out NintendoEverything.com when the review is out for Dennis's full impressions of the game. Other than that, it has been a pretty big time for Nintendo news. Everyone is well aware of this point that the 3DS and Wii U eShops are shutting down in the near future, which I'm going to shed a silent tear over here for that. But folks were pretty caught off guard when the Wii and DSi shops, which you haven't been able to purchase games from in a long time, you've only been able to re-download games from them, but they just kind of went offline randomly a little while ago. And Nintendo has come out since then and said, you know, the shops are just under maintenance, but they didn't provide any estimate on when they'd be coming back. And it's weird that they went down with no notice. So what's your guys' take on all this?
These might be the death throes of those shops, sadly. At this point, I don't know if there's really much reason for Nintendo to want to invest any further time into them, so this might just be preparation for taking them down permanently. As sad as that is.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, you know, I mean, I do understand, you know, there's cost to keeping these servers running and all that. It's just, you know, from a game preservation perspective, you know, the fact that there really is, you know, people who have bought these games, you won't be able to continue to access them into the future. there's something about that that just kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, I think there's just this. I mean, look, it's no secret that Nintendo hasn't been the best when it comes to online infrastructure, right? So like it's been a topic of conversation for a very, very long time. And this sort of closure of, digital storefronts can be a problem in more ways than one. It's one thing to not have access to a store anymore, but it's a whole other thing to not be able to access your own games that you've purchased, and that's where things really start to become very anti-consumer to me. And I feel like I'm pretty sure they're breaking some anti-consumer laws as well. And I know there's been talk about video game preservation, because there's so much, especially in the 3DS eShop in particular, where there's a lot of content via the virtual console, right? You have Game Boy stuff, you have Game Boy Color stuff, NES stuff, so on and so forth. So there's been a lot of talk in that sort of space and trying to get Nintendo to, at the very least, offer that elsewhere. And Nintendo's never been a fan of piracy, right? And I'm not sitting here trying to condone it, but let's be honest, if I can't legally give you a way to make a transaction to purchase one of your games, but it's right there waiting for me on a website one click away, I mean, it's not like I didn't try.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I guess, who knows, like the optimist in me says, maybe they really are just under maintenance. Maybe Nintendo will actually come back and say, oh no, we were actually just updating our server infrastructure. We're going to let you re-download your Wii Shop and DSi Shop games for the next decade and beyond. But
in a twist, they're actually bringing it freaking online.
The strange thing about it is that Nintendo didn't say anything. We had to discover this. So it's like they have this whole dismissive attitude about this whole situation of preservation and those stores. It really seems that after the new console comes out, Nintendo really doesn't care about the past consoles, like the whole library. I don't know where I heard about it. Was someone that worked on Nintendo saying it, that Nintendo is a company that, even though they have immense and ridiculously valuable legacy content, they are always looking forward, always looking to the next game, the next product, the next game in the new franchise. So it's like they are not the kind of company that is usually looking at the past. Of course, they are releasing remakes, remasters, and all of that. But if you take a look, many times Nintendo, for example, they are going to do a remaster in games from the past. We see problems with emulation, or we see things like Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which was really weird the way those games were running on the Switch. Yeah. And it really feels like a half effort, like they are giving this to us because they know that we want it, but they don't want to commit to actually make an effort for preservation and for the past content. So in general, I just think that their attitude in that department is really weird.
Yeah, I almost like to imagine that the only reason these shops just like shut down, are inaccessible without notice is some intern just like pulled the wrong cable in the Nintendo server room. And
Maybe.
Which one was it? Gotta find it.
It was the intern.
So do you guys have a lot of Wii and DSi Shop digital games are being held hostage right now, or did you guys?
The only Wii digital game that I ever really purchased, if I remember correctly, was the Nintendo 64 version of Super Smash Brothers. That was really it. That's a lie. And Super Mario 64 and Pokemon Rumble. So 3 games, that's it, if I remember correctly. But those were from forever ago. And I didn't have a Wii for long, so it's not going to bother me too much missing out on those. It sucks, but I also have an original N64 and stuff like that with those games physically, so it's not a problem in terms of being able to play them. It's just a matter of hooking it back up again and losing access. But with those 3 games, it doesn't bother me, especially with, at the time, the Wii and DSi shops. They weren't really pushing digital content as hard as digital content is being pushed now, right? There's a lot more incentive now to go digital, even though of course there's the drawback of store closures and things like that. But Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna worry too much about Wii, but the Wii U and 3DS, that's a different story. There's a lot of digital content there that I own, and that released digital only, because then that's when you start to see a shift in a sort of digital future.
Right, DLC and
Yeah.
digital only
exactly.
games. Yeah,
The
I mean, even
it's
just
a
updates.
it's a problem that will getting worse with each generation. I mean, when the time comes for the Switch, it would be terrible if it comes.
yeah, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because I'm pretty sure. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Nintendo doing download only games before, like even before like Microsoft was with the 360 and all that? Like,
I think so. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering this correctly, I think there was a Shantae game on the DSi that was like the first ever
yes,
like
yes.
downloadable game.
It was like one of the first really big DSi like exclusive releases.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see how they're sticking to their old ways, but yeah, hopefully things will be better with the Wii U and 3DS eShops in the long run, so that people can still go and re-download some of that digital only content.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff there. I just remember reading an article where there's just a lot of stuff that's, number one, never been ported anywhere else, never mind just the Switch, but any other platform. So there's a lot of 3DS exclusive stuff that's digital only that will now disappear if you don't buy it, and it's that sort of pressure is just not good to put on people, because then you're pretty much just being like, look, buy it now or it's gone, gone forever, and then you just have to resort to YouTube videos if you're feeling nostalgic.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
it's not a good solution. And we are seeing other companies doing better solutions. I mean, Microsoft with Xbox, we have access to a huge catalog on the Series S, on the Series X. So we know that there are ways to mitigate that.
Yeah, no, they've been big in the sort of preservation of video games, which is why you started seeing them do that backwards compatibility, right? When the Xbox One initially came out, there was no backwards compatibility. It was like this Xbox One is only going to play Xbox One games and that's it. But years later, they really got those engineers to do some magic, because they just released a firmware update that all of a sudden could play these original Xbox games and 360 games, right? Because they wanted to kind of introduce that sort of preservation and mindset that PC has had for years. If I bought a game in 2002 on Steam, a perfect example of this is like the original Half-Life, I can still boot up the original Half-Life in 2022, so that's not a problem. It's never a matter of, it being like, oh no, well, you don't have Windows Millennium anymore, so you can't play this. It's just like, hey, you have a PC? All right, cool, have fun. And I like that the Xbox ecosystem is doing that, where it's just like, hey, do you have an Xbox? Okay, have fun. There's not, you take away those barriers and those restrictions and that ease of access, which is very pro-consumer, and which kind of leads on to, without me drawing it out too long, the article that just went up that I wrote about. I believe it went up on midnight on Nintendo Everything. It's just about how Nintendo can get into the PC space, but it very much touches up on the topic of that video game preservation and that access to consumers, of being able to access your content anywhere and everywhere with not many restrictions and borders to that way you can just play your games, because if you bought them, you should do what
Why not?
you want with them.
Pretty
exactly.
simple. Yeah.
Whether it's digital or physical, like that shouldn't make a difference. I shouldn't worry about your store, going down. For maintenance, sure, that happens all the time. Keep the infrastructure updated, but
Right.
but don't, after people spending thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on video games. Like, it's insane. Like, imagine if Valve were to do that with Steam, as Nintendo did that with the 3DS eShops and stuff, where it's like people would lose their mind. Like, Steam,
There would be
riots
in the streets.
Yeah.
That's the only possible outcome.
Yeah, I have a huge library of like 1,000+ games on Steam. Like, if that happened, all that gone, I mean, I'm just thinking about it, my heart is sinking.
Be like, well, time to find a new hobby.
Yes, exactly. That is precisely what would happen.
Yeah. Speaking of preserving things that are old, Mario Kart recently released some new DLC. Has anyone? Thank you. Yes, I was very, very happy with that segue.
Nice transition. Yeah.
It took a while for me
yeah.
to understand the connection.
Well, Luiz, you should really check out the new Mario Kart DLC if you haven't yet, because it brings back a lot of courses that I just think it's really great to see Nintendo finally adding some new content to this game.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing those new tracks. I'm a huge fan of Mario Kart 8 in general, Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I really love the game. I think it's the best Mario Kart. It's incredibly polished, and I was really hyped when the DLC was announced. But after playing it, although I had a lot of fun, I'm enjoying it. Some of the elements in it make me a little disappointed, and everyone is talking about that in the internet. Everyone knows what it is, that Nintendo is kind of porting those Mario Kart 2 tracks to the game. So there are a little not those tracks are not at the same level of the tracks that we have on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Like there's no anti-gravity sections, there's no water sections, and in general they feel a little different. But they are still a lot of fun to play because the Mario Kart 8 is incredibly fun. So I was like, I'm having fun, I'm enjoying it, but I would really like to have new tracks at the same level of Mario Kart 8 and the first DLC on Wii U, because the first DLC was amazing with tracks like the ones from F-Zero, Animal Crossing. I mean, those are some of the best tracks that I ever played on Mario Kart 8. And I think at this time Nintendo is kind of with a position of prioritizing quantity instead of quality, which is not a big issue, but I would much prefer the inverse, if we had less tracks but with more quality and maybe some new characters like the first DLC. So I'm pretty mixed in general. I'm liking it, I'm playing it, but it's definitely, I think Nintendo could do a little better, and I'm hoping that in future tracks, maybe we are going to see some tracks with more, maybe new tracks made from the ground up to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But that's just a hope.
Yeah, I think it's I think a lot of the critiques of the pack are definitely very understandable. I mean, it doesn't look as good as the base game, for sure. And I do think, people who are wanting new tracks, I mean, I think that's a valid thing to hope for at this point in the game's life cycle. For me personally, I never played a lot of Mario Kart Tour. And so a lot of the tracks that they did bring over for this DLC, to me, they felt like new tracks.
Yeah.
I thought the
I think that's the biggest thing.
And I thought my favorite, I mean, is either the Paris Promenade course or the Ninja Hideaway course.
Oh,
I mean,
definitely.
Those both feel like full courses to me.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, personally at least, is of the courses they brought back, a decent amount of the existing ones, like the tracks from N64 or whatnot, the older ones, feel a little bit outdated. Like Luiz said, the lack of anti-gravity or any kind of water definitely makes them feel a bit bland. But I really love that we're getting this, if nothing else, then because we're finally getting tour tracks on a screen that is not, phone-sized. We can actually finally enjoy them in like an actual proper Mario Kart game. Not that there's anything wrong with Tour, but it's a very different thing between playing on a phone and playing on a Switch.
Yeah, well, and especially because, I mean, I think they changed it, but originally with Mario Kart Tour, you could only play vertically. And I think later on they let you play it like a more traditional Mario Kart game. But
yeah, you can play it in like a landscape.
Yeah, they added that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I really think, it's when it comes down to quality versus quantity, that's really where people are going to get torn up. I do think it's crazy that they are basically doubling the size of this game for less than half the price of a full price game.
Yeah.
It's basically Mario Kart 9 in that regard.
Yeah, well, and I mean, does it kind of make you wonder? I mean, like where would they go from here? I mean, if they're really going to be adding 48 new courses to this game, I mean, there can't really be a new Mario Kart in the near future. I mean, right?
Yeah,
What do you guys think?
This is going until the end of 2023, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But my thoughts are, apparently the reason why they're doing this, again, these are just rumors, these are just speculation, but implementing all these new tracks, because first of all, Mario Kart is one of the best-selling, if not the best-selling game on the Switch, if I'm not mistaken. So And so you have a huge user base there that is still very actively playing that game, so will have no problem at all buying or purchasing that DLC, assuming they don't, gain access to it through the Nintendo Switch Online service, with the expansion pack. So,
Right.
but there's just a couple of rumors that I've been hearing of apparently Mario Kart Live was meant to be secretly Mario Kart 9. So what they're working on at the moment is Mario Kart X, which is the Roman numeral for 10, obviously. And that will be the next one to probably release in 2024, if not 2025, alongside a potentially new, Switch or a new console. So, because traditionally when we think about it, Mario Kart, there's only ever really been one entry per console, right? So, I that would not shock me that they kind of are having this just to kind of hold people off, and still get a couple sales in the meantime while preparing, whatever Mario Kart 10 is supposed to be. Assuming they don't just go straight to 9, assuming Mario Kart Live wasn't actually Mario Kart 9 secretly.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Mario Kart's always been incredible, so I mean, I'm sure it'll be great either way. But yeah,
it makes a lot of sense, and I don't think the core Mario Kart 8 team is working on the DLC. Maybe some people, but not the whole team. And it was a long time since we received something from that team, because I think the last game that they released was ARMS on 2017. So I think... I don't think they are working on ARMS too. I don't know why, but maybe they could, but I don't know. So it could be more plausible that they are working in a new full-on Mario Kart, and there's another smaller company or a smaller Nintendo team working at porting those tracks for Mario Kart Tour. I think probably Nintendo made this as a more of a small budget project, just to they are making all those crazy tracks for Tour, so it makes sense to port them to 8 if that's not much of a trouble. And then the core Mario Kart 8 team is working on the next one.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely don't...
Oh, no,
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no, I was just going to say, it really would have made sense for them to bring over these courses, like, I don't know, 2 years ago. It seems weird that we're getting this DLC now, of all times. I mean, you're not going to hear me complaining. I mean, I would guess you could say I'm a bit of a Mario Kart shill, but, I was just over the moon, just the fact that we were getting some new content for this game at all. And, if there really is a new, I know we're just talking about rumors right now, but I would be really curious to see what they would do with a new Mario Kart game. I really have a hard time imagining what that could even look like at this point. Sorry, Nicolas, go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts.
Oh, no, pretty similar thoughts. I definitely don't think we're getting any brand new Mario Kart game until whatever the next console is. That's probably the reason why this is stretching until end of 2023, is because it's probably going to be nearing the end of the Switch's life cycle. I'd assume it wouldn't last past like 2024, maybe 2025 at the latest. If we're going to give brief thoughts on what the next Mario Kart could be, I think the most obvious is just taking it in a Smash-like direction. We've already gotten Animal Crossing, Splatoon, Zelda as crossovers, so bring more of that, maybe Samus, Kirby, possibly F-Zero, would just make sense in that regard, and it would take away the pressure from having to develop that many brand new mechanics like the anti-gravity or the gliding and underwater in 7.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like it's an open book at this point.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out, and I'm just curious to see what the rest of the courses that will come to the DLC will look like. Let's move on to our next topic. We've still got a couple things left to get to in today's show. One of the other big news topics that just came out this past week was Dragalia Lost. For those who aren't familiar, this was one of Nintendo's kind of more off-the-wall mobile games, I would say. I never played too much of it, but apparently they're shutting it down in the near future, this summer, I believe. So is this a loss? Has anyone been playing Dragalia Lost? I know it did fairly well for a little while.
Yeah. So my understanding is, because I've downloaded the game and I've looked into it a little bit. I've never extensively played it myself. my understanding is that it's shutting down mostly because the recent sales have not met expectation, just in terms of the income they're receiving from it. I think it's generally really well liked by the player base, though. My understanding is that it's one of the more free-to-play friendly mobile games they've put out, and that's generally garnered a lot of goodwill. So that's a bit of a shame that we're losing it this way. Especially more of a shame because, like, this is a brand new Nintendo franchise that they made exclusively for mobile, and it's just disappearing.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
It
doesn't really feel like a traditional Nintendo game, you know, in a lot of ways. Actually, I mean, I'm looking at it right now. It says it was developed by DSi Games. I'm not super familiar with them. I think they do a lot of mobile games, though.
Yeah, I think so.
It's interesting because I always had the impression that the game was doing pretty well, and I was interested in it. I liked their style, I liked the anime art style and all of that, so I was like waiting for it to release on Brazil so I could play it, because Nintendo doesn't usually release their official games on the Switch in Brazil, but all their mobile games they released in Brazil with translation and all of that. So I was waiting for Dragalia Lost to come to Brazil, and then the game is ending now without never releasing. So I think it's kind of a sad news, because I imagine a lot of the fan base was really invested in the game and probably invested a lot of money in the game also. So it's kind of a sad news.
Yeah, it is kind of shocking. I'm checking out some news articles right now, and it says that as of 2019, July 2019, Dragalia Lost had made over $100 million, which is just a crazy amount of money. And it actually had made a little bit more than Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, which is particularly surprising to me.
I think it was second highest grossing for a while, right after Fire Emblem Heroes.
Yeah, Fire Emblem Heroes is not even on the same level.
Oh, it doesn't even compare. It's like almost double that. It's insane. But yeah, I think Dragalia just in over 2020 and 2021, it started dropping progressively, and I guess that was enough for Nintendo to just give it the axe.
Nintendo is kind of drifting away from their mobile projects, so maybe they just want to keep the games that are doing really good, like Mario Kart Tour and Fire Emblem Heroes, and that's probably it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there was a story recently about Nintendo kind of changing their mobile strategy. I'm really curious, you know, what they are going to end up doing in the future, because it seems like it does seem like they're mostly trying to step out of the market, which kind of surprises me, considering that I mean, as far as I know, they haven't announced any new projects, right? They just seem to be closing down things that. Yeah.
I think there were rumors about something, but I'm not sure. The only big brand that didn't receive a mobile game is Zelda, which was one I was expecting. So, yeah, I don't know.
I wonder how that'd be a weird translation into mobile. Like, what could you do, you know, with the Zelda property?
I mean, it would be something totally different, probably not very related to the main games.
Yeah.
It would probably just be a gacha.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, you know, there's also always the factor to consider is, you know, it could have nothing to do with the game itself. I mean, a lot of times it's easy to point to the game as, maybe didn't make enough money or whatever, but it also could just be, I mean, if they are working with an external team on this game, I mean, maybe something is going on at DSi Games, or maybe they're moving on to other projects.
Yeah, true.
Any number of factors. Yeah, you know, I think it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out in the near future. I don't play a lot of Nintendo games on my phone. I'm mostly on my Switch at this point, which, you know, fortunately that is something that they are still trying to make marginally easier for us. The other big news topic that we wanted to talk about this week was they finally added folders to the Nintendo Switch, which means
5 years later.
Well, can you even call them folders?
It's more of a tag system. I mean, it's really different.
Because I mean, they're referring to them as groups too.
Yeah,
so
groups.
it's like it's weird, and if I'm not mistaken, again, I haven't tested this for myself, but maybe you guys can clarify for me. Apparently, if you create a group, you still have to go to the select all sort of library
Yeah.
button in order to access those groups
Yeah.
instead of them being on the home screen. And I'm like, well, what was the point then? What was the point?
Yeah, it's a classic Nintendo. They doesn't want to make what everyone else is doing. I mean, even then already did usual folders in the past. But it works, like I said,
3DS worked just fine.
it works like tags because you only use it if you want to search for a specific type of game. It's not like it to organize your UI, because you have to go to the all the apps and then click the L button. If you could at least press the L button in the menu, it would be way easier. But no, you have to open a different tab and then go to... I'm not using it, to be honest, at the moment.
It feels like it adds steps to the process, which feels kind of counterintuitive.
I mean, I used it, I created some groups just for fun, but I'm not actually using it.
Yeah, it's super weird because, I mean, it's not like Nintendo hasn't had folders before. They've had them on 3DS, and then they've had them on Wii U, and they worked just fine. Actually, they worked great on both Wii U and 3DS. And on 3DS especially, with the amount of games I had downloaded, those were a great way for me to organize and kind of condense my screen because, you know, with the themes that the 3DS had, I liked making my home screen look nice, you know, then especially with the that little, like, arcade, that bunny arcade where you could get a bunch of icons and things like that, stickers to put all over the 3DS.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I designed my
fun.
3DS from top to bottom. Yeah, and then adding the themes and everything. Like, I was all about that. So the folders really, really helped in kind of making a sort of clean sort of home menu that way. But yeah, no, this doesn't help at all. And then not to mention, like we still don't have themes. There's a theme section in the system settings, and for some reason it's been the same two colors, black and white, since 2017. It's ridiculous. Like, come on, I can't even set a photo I've taken as a background.
Yeah,
like,
at least add the
Yeah, that's
option to
pretty
change the
crazy.
At least that.
wallpaper.
yeah.
Oh yeah, maybe they just don't want to hire another graphic designer. Which, like, look, I get it, but like, let us make our own.
God forbid this $1 billion company pay this
It's
contractor
really hard.
$10,000.
I think about the groups in general, I think Nintendo has a concept for the Switch UI that they want to put the games in the spot. Like, they want to have those big images with the recent games that you've been playing. So, and at the start, it really worked, but... with the passing time, I started to buy more games, and now I have a lot of games on my Switch, and it feels like the UI is not up to it.
No, it's not. I mean, it was fine when the Switch had first come out, right? Because there wasn't too much to give you. So
Yeah.
that UI was super clean. It was honestly perfect. I remember saying at the time, like, oh my God, I love this UI.
In 2 clicks, you are playing Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was super easy. And even the eShop at the time was like super slick and stuff like that. But now there's way too much content from every single direction that UI is just not favorable for, you know, the entire Switch ecosystem, you know, and with that you do have to evolve your dashboards like Xbox does, you know, or XMBs like PlayStation has. So like, you just gotta, you know, just please, with a firmware update, just evolve the way that it looks, make things more accessible, make things a little easier to organize, because these groups, you know, finally we had folders, but of course, because there needs to be one, there's of course a caveat, which in this case is you still got to go to, you know, your entire library in order to view them. So, but it's a good perspective that you have on it though, Luiz, where it's like it's a good way to see them more as tags than, you know, folders and stuff. I think that's probably a good way to look at it.
Yeah, and Nintendo does have a history of, I mean, if reports are to be believed, you know, we're still fairly, you know, not too far into the Switch's life cycle, maybe halfway through, and Nintendo does have a history of like making these big updates to like the way their systems work, like even like really late into the console's life cycles. So who knows? I mean,
so 3DS got a whole home menu revamp, which introduced, you know, all the themes and stuff like that too.
Right.
That maybe a couple years.
I also remember Wii U
Well,
didn't have folders at the launch. It came, I think, a couple years after.
right, yeah. It feels like it's only a matter of time, but yeah, you can never really put money down either way on stuff like this. All right, well, that about wraps up our news topics for the week. Thank you everyone who's gotten it to this point in the show. Before we wrap things up, I'm just curious, what has everyone been playing lately? I've been playing a lot of Rune Factory, but I want to hear, before I get into that, I want to hear what you guys have been getting into.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I have been playing actually a little bit of Rune Factory as well. I'm really, really enjoying that. But really what most of my time has been going to, Kirby just came out, so obviously I've been playing that. But outside of that, man, I've been loving Tunic. Like, I've been playing so much Tunic on Xbox, and I think at the moment it is exclusive to Xbox and PC. So I'm not sure if you
Yes.
can get it on PlayStation and or Switch. I don't believe so. But yeah, I've been playing that via Xbox Game Pass, and that has been just stolen my heart away. I mean, we were talking about Zelda earlier, and there's a lot of sort of vibes of older Zelda games, not so much newer ones, but definitely the more traditional Zelda games, and but mixed with a little bit of like Fez as well, which if you haven't played Fez is like super cryptic and very much a explore and uncover these puzzles, these very logical puzzles, at your own pace. And but yeah, that game gets deep, and Tunic has just absolutely stolen my heart. So I've been playing a whole lot of Tunic. So that's where the bulk of my time's been going to.
Yeah, I've heard that comparison to Fez a few times. Is it like, are the puzzles up there in difficulty, would you say? Or
Oh yeah, they're up there. But the thing is if Tunic is much more accessible than Fez, because Fez really, I mean, unless you had a pen and paper, man, like you had to break that thing down, and then even then you weren't sure. So you probably had to go to like get your PhD first in order to properly play Fez.
Yeah.
It got crazy, but Fez is also one of those games that is just incredibly rewarding, and but it's also, before I mention Tunic, it's also, because I need to call out Fez about this. It's one of those games that I've 100%ed, and at the time I played it on PlayStation Vita, and it does not come with a platinum trophy. If any game deserves a platinum trophy, it is Fez. Okay, with how difficult that game is. All right, and once you get 100% of the trophies, you need to get not one, two platinum trophies, as a matter of fact, in that game. But they don't give it to you like at all. It's just 100%, and that's it. And you walk away. So that's the only disappointing part about that. But yeah, Tunic, you uncover these little papers as you go throughout the world, and they kind of create this in-game manual as you go. And through that, you sort of decipher a lot of the puzzles and what a lot of the hieroglyphics and emblems and icons mean. Because the game isn't presented to you in a traditional English format, right? It's this sort of made-up language.
Of course.
And it's awesome. Like, I love stuff like this because it's almost like you are learning a new language. And I mean, I love languages in general. So it's a super interesting way to have the game unfold as you go. And what's blowing my mind about Tunic even more is that the game gets deeper and deeper and deeper. I thought I was going to go into it maybe 5 hours tops, right? I was going to, okay, I'm probably beat this in 5 hours and just walk away. But this game is incredibly polished and just so deep and rich in content, and I mean, I can't recommend it enough, man. Like, if you have Game Pass, even if you just have a PC, if you don't own an Xbox, do yourself a favor and please go play Tunic, or just buy it because it's worth every penny, honestly. So
Yeah, people have been saying amazing things about it. It feels like a strong candidate for a Switch port.
True.
I mean, I know people were saying a lot of what you were just saying about Tunic, Dennis. People were saying about Death's Door when that came out not too long ago, and I think that game is already on the Switch. So
yeah, Death's Door is on the Switch now. Yeah, I played Death's Door when it came out on PC, and like, Death's Door is also an incredible, incredible game. So if you want something more budget friendly that you can have access to right now, absolutely do yourself a favor and get/play Death's Door while we wait for Tunic to be ported to the Switch, because I promise you it's such a great game. But that one's more of a Metroidvania than a Zelda-like, where Tunic leans more towards Zelda, where Death's Door would lean more towards a traditional sort of Metroidvania. But man, it's either way, it's incredible. Play them all. Play Death's Door. Get all those cute animals. Play all those cute animal games. Play all of them. It's great.
they're all in my backlog, that's for sure. Luiz, what about you? What have you been playing lately?
Oh, so I've been more playing some retro games. I mean, because I started to follow Nintendo more closely in 2010, I had a lot of holes in my gamer curriculum. So
Yes.
I've always been a big Metroid fan. I love Metroids. I love all the games from the original one to the ones in the Game Boy Advance and our recent Metroid Dread, but I never played any of the Prime series. And because
Oh man.
I kind of have this, I don't like first-person shooters, so I was like, oh, I don't know if I'll like this game. But then with the news that the Wii U shop would close, I had to buy the Metroid Prime trilogy. And just recently, I finished the first Metroid Prime, and oh my god, the game is fantastic. It's really, really good. My video video that will come out this week talks a little about that. And it's just a fantastic game. From the moment that I started playing, and the controls felt so smooth, so good with the Wii pointer and the movements, everything happening in 60 FPS. I was really impressed with the game. And it didn't age a bit. It still is an incredible experience. So I just finished the first one, and now I just started the second one, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and I hope that I can do the whole trilogy until next month. Really, really great.
Awesome.
Yeah, man, what I would not give to get to play those games again for the first time. Yeah, they're really not, I mean, traditional first-person shooters. You know, there really is much more of a focus on puzzle solving. So I can see, if you're not a fan of first-person shooters, I can see how they would still appeal to you.
Yeah, it's more like an adventure first-person shooter. I mean, what impressed me the most was because the feeling that I had playing it was exactly the same feeling that I had playing 2D Metroid. But the immersion was even bigger because I was literally seeing the world through Samuel's eyes. So yes, I really liked it.
Yeah. You reminded me. I've got to pick up a digital copy of the trilogy before they are permanently erased from.
That's
digital
basically the only way to play
so,
those games, legally speaking.
Yeah, unless you want to spend over $100 on a physical copy.
True.
Collector market is just crazy right now.
It's wild. But I remember when the Metroid Prime trilogy came out, I couldn't say no to it because at the time when they started releasing Wii games to the Wii U eShop, when Metroid Prime launched, it had a launch discount of 50% off, which is very rare to see Nintendo do launch discounts. So instead of, I believe it's $20 US for the trilogy, it was only $10 US, and I was like, oh my god, I get these three incredible games for $10. Absolutely. Yeah. So that was a no-brainer. I bought that right away.
Oh,
like when
crazy.
it came out when Wii U.
I mean, it's a fantastic
probably got some
collection.
people to purchase a Wii U.
More than likely, I would not be surprised. I know one of my close friends, actually, he's a huge Metroid fan. I mean, he's even got a tattoo. And so, believe me, that was definitely a big incentive for him to get into the Wii U ecospace. So.
Yeah, sorry, Luiz. What you were saying more about Metroid?
No, I would say that I don't see Nintendo doing a trilogy like Metroid Prime trilogy again. I mean, it's such a crazy value in just one game. I mean, Super Mario 3D All-Stars was kind of close, but those games were way old by the time the collection came out. But the Metroid Prime trilogy is just and the whole trilogy is put together with such a care. All the controls are all adapted. It's really a great work from Retro Studios.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I hope we get those games on the Switch sometime soon.
Oh, yeah.
Nicolas, what about you? What have you been playing lately?
So on my end, nothing super interesting. I mean, main focus right now is going to be Kirby, which I guess is kind of obvious at this point. Other than that, I've been recently replaying Xenoblade Chronicles 2 because the announcement for 3 got me really excited for that. So I've been doing some New Game Plus stuff with the intent of completing everything, which is really fun, even if it's a little bit of a drag for certain quests, like Ursula, if people know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just kind of replaying Xenoblade 2 and having lots of fun with Kirby right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, beating any of the Xenoblade games once is a feat. So the fact that you are going through and playing it again, I think we know what you'll be playing for the next 6 months.
Those games are huge. I love them to death. Favorite franchise, but my god, some of them are a bit of a pain to complete.
The two in particular, because it has all the gacha elements and the skill trees. I mean, it's probably my favorite game of all time, the second Xenoblade. So I already finished it, I think, 5 times, with 2 being New
Ooh,
Game
nice.
Plus.
Wow.
And something that I always enjoy about replaying that game is because there's the gacha elements, I always get different blades and all of that. So it's always kind of a different experience.
Yeah, arguably the most replayable of all 3 of them.
True.
Man, yeah, that is one of my gaming blind spots. I have not played a Xenoblade game for more than a couple minutes, so I intend to go play the Switch version soon. I've had it downloaded forever, but yeah,
It's
people rave
understandable.
about it.
It's kind of a difficult game to get into, but after you manage to pass through the barrier, it's an amazing experience.
Yeah, I do have a soft spot for RPGs. I've been playing, like Dennis, I've been playing Rune Factory 5 recently. My review came out this last week, and that was actually my first Rune Factory game. I kind of had a decent sense of what to expect going in. I enjoyed it for the most part. It's, I think I was expecting it to be in a little bit better condition than it was when it released. It's a little rough around the edges. Some of the mechanics don't feel fully fleshed out. Like I think the crafting system in Rune Factory 5 is just too obtuse for its own good, personally. Just feels a little bloated. But man, like what great writing, what great characters. I was really surprised at that aspect of the game, how much thought went into it. Because you see a lot of games that try and meld genres, meld farming with life sims or whatever the combination is, and usually something gets lost in translation, but I didn't really feel like that was the case with Rune Factory. Dennis, you said you've been playing Rune Factory as well?
Yes, I have been, yeah. And no, it's basically what the Rune Factory series has always been, except now, we have more of a traditional sort of 3D over-the-shoulder perspective, right? And the last one, I'm sure there have been 3D ones in the past, but the last one that I really can remember that was actually 3D was on the Wii, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was Tides of Destiny.
Yeah, and then I believe there was one on PS3, but I can't remember if that one was actually like 3D or not. But the one on the Wii was the last one I really remember spending a lot of time into, and I spent time in Rune Factory 4 on 3DS, and then I reviewed Rune Factory 4 Special on the Nintendo Switch, which was good, but it was very much as straight of a port as a port can get. It was there was a lot of still. It still felt like I was playing it on a 3DS, except on one screen instead of 2. Because a lot of the resolution and stuff like that did not get, fixed at all. But it's a great game in its own right. But yeah, it's not going to be for everyone, however. But what Rune Factory's always done great with is the fact that I've always loved the balance between farming and the RPG aspect of it, and the fact that I never feel like I'm being rushed. Everything I do in Rune Factory feels timely and at my own pace, even though you do have a very expedited sort of clock system in there, because it's not going to be
Right.
like Animal
It's much
Crossing.
faster.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be like Animal Crossing where it's doing whatever time it is on your system. It is like every so real life minutes will be maybe 3 hours in game, right? So there's that sort of difference there, but it never feels like it rushes me. It's not like a lot of other farming sims where like 5 minutes after I wake up, all of a sudden it's dinner time. I hate that. I hate that with passion, So I like that with Rune Factory, if I wake up at 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. Or even 10 a.m., I can still get a lot done by the time it's noon. And then I can spend a good portion of that day going to all the various shops, going, out and adventuring, talking to people, completing tasks for people from the quest board, right? And just experiencing every day. It sounds corny, but every day at its fullest, right? Where it's like, and it feels like you're in, for me personally, it feels like you're in this actual like day-to-day world that at the same time doesn't really ask too much of you, right? And then whenever you're ready to move on for the day, once you are done, or maybe you just want to move on and experience an event and a festival like a lot of these games typically have, then you can just go to sleep and then just pop into the next day and kind of move on the calendar that way. But
yeah, there's really not a lot of pressure to do anything you don't want to do. I mean, you can progress through the story at your own pace, or you can just spend a ton of time fishing, which is definitely something I did.
Yeah, fishing. I really like the fishing in this game. Actually, it's a lot of fun. And just farming sims in general. I mean, some kind of don't really nail the fishing like too well. I'm looking at you, Stardew, but otherwise, I do typically love fishing a lot in these sorts of games. And but yeah, just the flexibility of everything and the crafting. Mechanics, and the UI is super clean, and they did a lot of quality of life updates to it that I've been asking for like ever now, that I feel like a lot of people have been asking for forever, but there's definitely still room for improvement. And I don't know if this was the case with you, Nick, but there's still, to me, a lot of optimization issues that could still be addressed. Like going in and out of buildings is like, I mean, the Switch has a heart attack for a moment,
Yes, it does. Yeah, it was really bad when I started my review period with the game, which was really, they gave me a lot of time with this game, and but by the time it actually came out, they actually had improved it. Maybe I was just in the context of my PlayStation, I was like, wow, it's gotten better, but yeah, it's still not great. It could definitely be more stable for sure.
Yeah, and I also noticed, I don't know if you caught onto this, but in the options menu, I know not everybody goes into the options menu. That's usually the first place I go in any game because I like to make sure everything's to my liking before I start a game. But there's a dynamic resolution option that you can toggle on or off, and but I don't seem to see much of a difference in docked or handheld mode, and I just leave it off because it's a lot more crisp that way.
Interesting.
Versus dynamic, where obviously, well, as dynamic resolution is, it's going to change the resolution of certain assets that are either closer to the screen or farther away from the screen, and things can kind of get a little more blurry. But I see no performance difference at all, docked or handheld. So it's like still running at 30. Oh, it's trying its best to run at 30, and it's whether it's on or off. So yeah, I don't know if you've noticed this at all or played around with the dynamic resolution option, or if it's there by accident. But I don't know what.
Well, I noticed while I was playing, I noticed the resolution changing, which I mean, it's not ideal, but it's not usually enough to take me out of the experience unless it's really egregious. But no, I didn't notice a dynamic resolution option. I wonder if it got patched in towards the end of the review period, because it definitely wasn't. I don't feel like it was there when I started playing the game, but maybe it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's interesting. I do like that trend of developers at least trying to give people options for, hey, if our game has to run poorly in one way, like, you can at least choose.
Yeah, I like that. No, I agree 100%. I like that games more as of late are giving you that choice between performance and resolution. I do wish we could maybe tweak a little bit more like you can on PC. With PC games, I mean, you can tweak every little thing, ambient occlusion, shading, anti-aliasing, so on and so forth. But for consoles, I do like that we're kind of going towards that way of just like, hey, look, we can make this look really nice, but we're going to be targeting a much lower frame rate. Still playable, but we're going to be targeting a much lower frame rate just to kind of ease up on the hardware. Or you can have this run buttery smooth at anywhere between 60 to 120 frames per second, depending on your console, and but it is going to be running at a maximum of maybe 1080p, instead of 4K. So, but I like, or in the Switch's case, it's like, hey, would you rather take 720 60 or 1080 30? Which and more often than not, I'm in the case of like, I'd much rather have smooth buttery performance, so I'll happily take that 720 60 any day of the week. That's just me personally, though.
Yeah. I think, at the end of the day, Rune Factory fans are just excited that this game exists.
Oh, of course.
And I think, I do think it'll be interesting to see how long it stays in everyone's attention, because there are a lot of RPGs coming out this year, Xenoblade just being one of them. But yeah, I think for the moment, I mean, it's really cool to finally see this franchise come to Switch in a big way. And I mean, it was enough to get me interested in it, and I think it'll be enough to maybe get some more people to try out this franchise.
I hope so. I really do. Just because Rune Factory, if I'm not mistaken, kind of stemmed from a team of people who used to work over at Harvest Moon. So and kind of similar to what happened with Story of Seasons, except that was more of like a property like management thing, where they couldn't take the name with them. But yeah, no, I mean Rune Factory is great. So like and it does everything in a well balanced manner, right? So even if you're not the craziest for farming sims but love RPGs, you'll have something to enjoy in Rune Factory 5, or even vice versa, right? Where if you're big into farming sims but maybe not the craziest for RPGs or don't invest as much time into RPGs, you still can spend a bulk of your time there and still get a lot out of the game. Obviously, it's still gonna want you to go out and play with both features, but I think there's something in Rune Factory for everyone, really, and they did a really good job with Rune Factory 5. But it's a big, big difference from past Rune factories as well. So if people go into Rune Factory 5 and like, oh, once they kind of get their fix, like, oh, let me see what else Rune Factory related is on the Switch, and they go back to Rune Factory 4 Special and they buy that, they might not click with that as much, or maybe they will. It just kind of depends.
Yeah.
Everyone's different, but yeah, just definitely expect. Like the core foundation is still there, but visually and mechanically, it works very, very different.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for fans of Rune Factory and the Switch in general. I think that is about it for our show for today. Thank you everyone who tuned into this first episode to listen to us. We're gonna do our best to make this a weekly discussion series. So drop us, in the comments if you guys have any feedback for us or anything you want to see in future episodes. Let us know. We are hoping to get this out on more platforms in the near future, but we're on YouTube for now. Let us know what you'd like to see. And thank you everyone so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We will see you guys next time.